Okay, call the meeting to order. Welcome to the February 20th, 2012 meeting of the Currituck County Board of Commissioners. Glad to see all of you here. For those that weren't here during the work session, I'd like to report that we had a nice presentation on the UDO, and we still are working on that. We have a lot of things that we want to discuss, but it looks like we're making a lot of progress with it. And I'd like to begin with the invocation. Reverend Jerry Ross, if you'll lead us in that, and then Pledge of Allegiance. If all of you please rise.
May we pray, please. Most gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we love you. Thank you, Father, for these men and women that are on the Board of Commissioners. We pray that you grant them wisdom, give them understanding, give them patience. Father, give us as Currituckians the proper atmosphere that we need to go ahead and get things done and do it right for your honor and for your glory. We love you. We ask this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Stand for pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item is the approval of the agenda. You all note one item was removed, the public hearing regarding turkey shoots, so we'll not be hearing that tonight. Do I have any other changes?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Public comment period. This is a time where all of the public can come and address the Board of Commissioners with any topic of interest or concern to them. I have 5 people signed up tonight. All would like to address the UDL rewrite. I'd please ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. And Mr. McCree, the attorney, will be the timekeeper for that. First person I have signed up is Ben Rolfes. Welcome back, Ben.
Thank you. Ben Rolfes, 129 Deer Run. Good evening, commissioners. Ben and his clerk. Wanted to bring a couple items up of concern about the UDO rewrite. In section 5.13, I don't know if y'all want to turn there real quick or not, but it deals with incentives for sustainable development practices. Owen was correct that this terminology has been around for a while and probably was involved and written in, or the idea of it in the previous UDO. But that intent back then was very benevolent. Okay. Since then, United Nations Agenda 21 has used these soft, pleasing words and have twisted the meaning of these words. And I would like to encourage the board, as Mr. O'Neill mentioned, we need to define the definition of sustainability in the UDO rewrite, okay, to protect the citizens from any way of that being twisted to apply to the UN Agenda 21. So I'd like to bring that up. But 5.13 says incentives for sustainable development practices. Mandated lead standards will create monopolies, kill jobs, mandates that only LEED approved building materials can be used, manufactured abroad, not in the U.S., and is likely to be less efficient than other energy efficient construction practices. All of this is in the UN Agenda 21, Green Building Code. Okay, again, everybody wants to be sustainable and have a sustainable future for our generations to come, but we do not want to have it in the way that it complies with the UN Agenda 21. Mr. Etheridge mentioned that the Currituck County goes green. Again, this was a benevolent thing from the past that, yeah, we need to preserve our environment. Because if we left it up to humans, they would sure as heck mess it up. So we have to have some guidelines. But we have to be careful on what we approve in the UDO, the new one, to where, again, we're not hoodwinked by a higher power that has another idea of what they want to accomplish. And what's interesting is talking to folks about the UN Agenda 21, they look at you like a deer staring in the headlights. Like, this can't be. Well, folks, people across the country, states, towns, municipalities are kicking these people out because of the threat that they're bringing to the sovereignty of the people of the United States. So we addressed the definitions. I would like for that to be put into the UDO. We feel like the process that Clarion used is a flawed process. I don't remember ever being surveyed about the UDO rewrite.
Last time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, gentlemen, ladies.
Senator two.
Let him fit. Go ahead.
Okay, you can finish.
I was not surveyed, to my knowledge, about the UDO rewrite. How many folks, Mr. Richardson, he's not in here, how many folks were surveyed for this? Does anybody have a number for that?
209.
209 folks?
209 people completed.
Out of 23,000 residents of Currituck County?
Voluntary.
Voluntary, okay. Here's one other issue. The other gentleman, Mr. Richardson's sidekick, mentioned that it is currently a voluntary thing, sustainable development. Okay? Well, we all know we have to define limits. Okay? We have to prepare. If this UN Agenda 21 issue is real, we need to put limitations on what is voluntary. Okay? Because if it's voluntary now, what will it be tomorrow? You follow what I'm saying? So I would like to suggest that that be better defined as well to protect the citizens, to where, like I mentioned to one of the commissioners earlier today, 10, 15 years down the road when we're in a happy hunting ground or somewhere, retired, that a new board is faced with this, and they look at this, okay, and it's... Thank you.
We're going to have to call it time, so we move it here. But thank you, Mr. Office. Next person has signed up, Ms. Tabb. And please give your name and address for the record, too.
Okay. My name is Tony Tabb, and I live at 328 Mason Lane in Moyock. And I'm here tonight. Good evening, commissioners, clerk, planning director, attorney, county manager. Appreciate you giving us the time, and I'm glad we got to sit through the work session that you just had with the planning board. I got to say I'm very disappointed in both bodies in that our group, members of our group, Ben Rolface and Jill and myself, sent information to all of, to Mr. Woody, to all of the planning board members, to all the members of this commission. Did all of you receive the email that we sent to Ben that included links to information about Agenda 21? Can I just see a show of hands? Did you all receive that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so everybody received it. I understand that it was, some of the information was a little long and included a couple of videos, but they were very well explained, very well documented information about this problem, Agenda 21, sustainable development. It didn't seem, although the citizens have come forward and expressed the concern, there was no discussion of it at all tonight. Any kind of feedback. Do you all have any concerns about it? Not a single one.
Of the audience that are here, how many of y'all are familiar
No, I just want to know from the commissioners.
I just
know the
have to
audience
give you a chance
does.
to explain
Okay.
what it actually is,
Well,
because if you aren't aware, it was a voluntary, it's actually not a legal document with the UN, but it was a set of guidelines mostly for third world developing countries. But there's been a lot of controversy about it. So go ahead. Now, I won't deduct any time.
Well, to dismiss it, I think you do that at your peril, because it is not just Currituck. I mean, for a couple of reasons, a couple being that it will affect you eventually in your community. It affects you that it's going on in other communities throughout the United States. It is an assault on property rights and our American sovereignty. That's what it's all about. And it's well documented if you'll take the time. You've spent 2 years doing this process to ask you for an hour and a half of your time to, look over this information, and, it shouldn't be a whole lot. I do want to bring up one thing. As part of this process, and it is a flawed process, because you're starting right off the bat with assumptions that Clarion brings in, which one of the pieces of information that I provided was a link about Clarion and their role in promoting UN Agenda 21, otherwise known as sustainable development, throughout this country. So you've had that information in front of you, and they're the ones, that's what raised the alarms, for us. But one of the things that they use is a process called Delphi, the Delphi process. And I think some of this information, if you read a little bit further or watched, it's basically a process that means that they start with the end result in mind, and they guide people to that answer. So, sure, they said, they talked to all these citizens. We did this survey. 209 people out of 23,000 participated. And then I'll bet you that information went forward as that was consensus from the community.
That's time, Mr. Chairman.
Can you finish in a statement or two?
I do want you to know, I appreciate it. Just give me one more second. This is, this will not be the end of the discussion about Agenda 21. As we brought up before to the Planning Board, Moore County, Gaston County have both in North Carolina passed resolutions against Agenda 21 and any involvement of ICLEI in their counties. Wake County is having a similar proposal tonight. I'm going to be sending you some more information about that's going on right now and how that process was flawed, and I'll be providing that information. So I hope that you'll take this issue seriously. It will affect generations to come in Currituck. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tabb.
Mr. Chairman, I want to make a comment. I have read some of the information on Agenda 21, and I've been on the Board of Commissioners the whole time that this process has been going on. And from the process I've been through, the UDO has been driven by citizen input. We've had how many meetings in the community?
45.
45 meetings in the community. Everything has been out in the open. And I couldn't tell you the process of the UDO rewrite has been to simplify the approval process for private property owners so that they're not burdened with the overbearingness of the county government. Now, we can't do anything about the state or the federal government and what they require, but this process, as y'all sat and watched tonight, we have eliminated step after step after step for people to get approvals to do things, and that's what the development community has told us they wanted. That's what private property owners have told us that they wanted. And I can't, and as I said, I've read some of the information. I can't find a fingerprint anywhere where we have taken any lead from anyone to make this a part of the UN Agenda 21. Now, some of the vernacular that's being used nowadays is sustainability. It used to be called conservation. I still call it conservation because I'm a conservationist. I think that you have to conserve your wetlands, you have to conserve your farmlands and forests, or the next generation doesn't have them. But I think the word conservation has been substituted with sustainability. So I don't think your concerns have been thrown out the window. Some of us have read what you've sent us, some of it, and I just cannot find, and I've raised concerns. They brought things forward that we as a board didn't think were appropriate in the UDO, and I've raised some of those issues tonight, as has some of the other commissioners, but I can't say that the Board of Commissioners or staff have been involved in anything other than what the citizens have brought forward telling us how they want this document to read, and I'm perfectly happy. Anything you can find in here that is off the whatever, we'll address it. But I haven't found it, and I'm looking for whoever to bring that forward, and we certainly will look into it. But I haven't seen it yet.
And I will absolutely agree with that. I find that it's probably the only professional developer on the board. I haven't run across anything in what this UDO rewrite has done that would be other than what I'd consider best practices for land development looking toward the future and preserving property values. I know a lot of times we found, unfortunately, that good causes get hijacked for political means, and I hate to see that kind of thing happen, so that the definition of sustainability and green service and conservation are somehow given a bad name when in fact they are vitally important to us. But I don't want to hold up the public comment. Mr. Woodard, I think, is next.
Mr. Chairman, may I say something? And I think it should be noted that tonight is living proof that we're still tweaking it. There are concerns out here that we don't understand. Mr. Woody doesn't understand. The planning board doesn't understand. We're not in a rush to pass this thing and sneak it by somebody. We're going to have another meeting on the 27th to get the planning board.
No, we're going to change that one. We're going to have it before the next commissioners' meeting.
Well, he said the
Work
27th.
session. I don't want to have another meeting this month. I want to have it prior to the next, just before the next meeting. 5 o'clock or 5:30 work session before that.
Okay, so all I'm saying is we're not trying to jam this thing through. We're still listening to people. Okay.
Mr. Woodard, sorry. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, gentlemen, ladies. The United Nations Agenda 21 came out of the World Earth Summit in Brazil back in the, I think, in the 80s. And the implementation of that in the United States came from a presidential executive order that was first signed by President George H.W. Bush. It was then reaffirmed by President Clinton and then was reaffirmed again by President Obama. The effects of Agenda 21 is that once it comes from a presidential executive order, it filters down into all the layers of bureaucracy and all the rules and regs and everything else that are developed in the country, all feed back into whatever that presidential directive was. I'm going to read for you a comment that I had that as I could sit here and talk to you all day about what's wrong with this. When you talk about lead, I could fill you with, I could tell you, it'd take me an hour to explain to you what all that means in the context of what we're talking about here today. But I came across this comment from the fellow that was the original person that was put in charge by the UN of this organization you've heard about called ICLEI. ICLEI stands for the International Council for Local Environmental Initiative. This fellow that started ICLEI said, and I quote, "The only hope for the planet is that the industrialized civilizations will collapse. And it is our responsibility to bring this about." Folks, private property rights, some of you may have saw on television a couple weeks ago or maybe a month ago now. This man and woman bought a lot out in one of the western states. I don't remember which one. They wanted to build their house. Somebody claimed that it was wetlands. They came back and brought in all this documentation, all these experts, all this counter information to prove that their property was not in fact wetlands, and they were denied the ability to build on that lot. This has gone all the way to the Supreme Court now, and thank goodness they've got the means to make that happen because the average citizen doesn't have that kind of financial capability. This is really, really bad. This is the camel's nose, folks. If you don't understand something, you can look at it in general terms. You've got information a little bit, it sounds good, and then as it develops over time, you begin to see how it implements out. It's kind of like Nancy Pelosi saying, pass this health care bill so you can find out what's in it. Well, this is what you're dealing with here.
That's time, Mr. Chairman.
You're going to find out that there is a lot more to this, but by then it's going to be too late. Thank you very much.
Okay. Mr. Woodard, I think you'll find you're preaching to the choir. We have some roads in our off-road district that are wetlands because they've got mud puddles in them during the rainy season. We are probably as, I won't say paranoid, but let's say wary of any regulatory influences on the actions in this county as anybody because we run into it constantly. So just be assured that we've got an eye out for anything that looks like it's going to impinge upon the rights of the citizens here for the use of their property other than us.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Go ahead.
to make sure that everybody understands what I said in the work session, the very items that we're talking about that fall under the definition of sustainability were in the original UDO that was adopted in 1989. This Agenda 21 was not adopted until 1992. So either they borrowed from us or we were visionaries way ahead of them. But we understand that. I contacted Mr. Woody earlier today about putting definitions of sustainability, of green, into UDO so that there's no questions asked. And to address what Mr. Ross said, this board can't bind a board 10 years down the road to a definition. We can take it, and it will remain the definition as long as the majority of any board of commissioner feels that way. So you can't bind somebody down the road.
May I have one more word, please? I'll take it from the next fellow. John, you and Owen both were at a meeting recently, and in this meeting when this Agenda 21 business came up, there was an uproar in the room, and you were there to listen to it. This is the voice of the people speaking. And as people are becoming more and more aware of what this is all about, they're scared for that their country's going away from them and that their private property rights are going to be taken from them. I would suggest that there's a lot more to learn here than what we've been able to shove in front of you in a short period of time and have you digest it in order to come here and make an informed decision about what to do or what not to do. You're all good people. Nobody questions that. But you've got to have all the tools, and these people have been making these plans for decades now, and it's all coming up at once. If we'd have known about this several years ago, we would have been up here several years ago, but we didn't see it coming either. So I'm just going to say, I think that the citizens haven't had a chance to speak on this. I would suggest maybe you want to give a little bit of a breather and have a special election or something else to give the opportunity for the citizens to understand what this is all about and have and speak their piece before they get roped into something inadvertently. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Wood, I understand that, and I appreciate it. I think Ms. Tabb made a very good point. 209 people participated in the survey, but 16,000 plus of them have the right to vote this year and determine which way we go. Many of us have read this material and are very familiar with it and just don't have the same fear that some of you seem to of this particular type of material. Mr. Officer, we had the time for that. I've got to move on with the meeting for that. I have Larry Beatty signed up next to speak. Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Larry Beatty. I live at 106 Pelican Point Drive in Elizabeth City. And I would like to thank you all tonight for giving us the opportunity to speak and raise our concerns. I think that some of the direction that you're taking is very appropriate to get a definition and get clear understanding of what they're actually suggesting here. My concern is not only for right now, but for the future of my children and my grandchildren. You know, the rights and liberties we have in this country are wonderful. And there are so many agencies, authorities, people outside our country that want to take that away from us. And the thing that makes us exceptional and unique are those liberties and freedoms that we have. I would ask that you review the information given, do a little more research. You've worked on it for more than 2 years. Work on it a little longer. Let us come and give you some more information. There's always hidden agendas, hidden terms that people use that sound good. I mean, if I hear the term green initiative one more time, I might want to throw up because my whole house is green. there isn't a wall that's not green. The grass is green. My wife wanted a green car. I'm tired of green. I don't throw anything out the window. I don't waste water. I take care of my recycling. I do the right thing because I love the land that I live on and in. But I also don't want restrictions to come about that will prevent me from living as an American on my own property. I live in an HOA right now for the first time.
You have my sympathy.
I want to tell you, I have never seen such a microcosm of bad politics in my life.
You know, they should make a rule that you can't put retired people on the board of an HOA.
You got that right. I agree with you. And just to put a little walkway in my backyard is like asking the world to come to an end. They have so many restrictions that were written with good intent, but when you have people who have other intentions twist and turn those rules and regulations, they turn them against you. We need to have rules and regulations that are appropriate, that are good for the citizenry, but you also have to think tank out all the ramifications, all the fallout. You go and you get a medication at the pharmacist and they give you a 25-page sheet of all the side effects. I wonder how many side effects there are to some of these good rules and well-intentioned plans that we have.
It's time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I don't know if anybody had, had noticed in talking about the situation. Of course, the concern seems to be what's coming down to us from the UN. Looking at the state of government in general in the United States, we have an endemic problem. What you've mentioned as a federal bureaucracy is certainly the case. But right here in North Carolina, we've had the same problem. We have commission after commission that have been formed to oversee certain specific areas. And those commissions were given the ability to make rules that became law after a certain period of time. That completely circumvented the legislative process. Absolutely. And as a result, we've got a mess we've got to clean up. That's going to affect us much more immediately and directly than what's going to happen at the federal level, because more and more local law enforcement officials are now running federal agents out of town because they're not going to put up with their interference. But at some point, we've got to address it at a national level. Fortunately, the United States have just generally disregarded the United Nations altogether, and that's probably been a good thing. I don't know how long that'll last, but we are sensitive to the problem. It's just I think we're worried about more immediate things right now. So that may be the case. Ms. Norrell, you're signed up next to speak.
I am Teresa Norrell. I live at 187 Rocky Top Road, and I don't have a whole lot to say or suggestions to offer. What I can tell you is that I applaud the board and the Planning Commission, for looking to make enhancements to the UDO for the purposes of reducing time frames for getting permits and those types of things. Just the few things that I've heard about, it sounds like, it's a really good idea to bring us up. It's always time to look at things and bring them up into the 21st century and those types of things as far as making things more efficient. And so for that, I applaud you. But as we all know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And so if we rush through this, and now that we have seen some of these things, these questions being raised, I don't think that there's anything nefarious on our board's part. But certainly, I have not read the whole 500 and some page piece of this. And of what I had heard about the UDO, it sounded like a wonderful thing. But since Tony has sent me the information that you were sent as well, and just with what I saw in there are fears as to what could slide in under a different terminology or a different intent. And we may be thinking that, this is a great and wonderful thing. But Currituck County is very unique I moved down here to get land and to enjoy that land, and I certainly was kind of hit a brick wall when also we have a HOA, and we were told what we can and cannot do, and that's the whole reason that we came down here, was to enjoy some land and some freedoms with that land. So if it's to protect us and the beautification of this county, and to ensure that we're not destroying wetlands and those types of things, I'm all for it. But I think that we do have to slow down and just really read through and look for anything that could, go awry. My biggest concern after reading all of this is just this. There's 2 counties that Tony mentioned, I believe it was Gaskin and Moore County, that have opted out. And they didn't just opt out, but, they made a resolution to say absolutely not. I would like for someone, on the board to possibly contact the Board of Commissioners in those counties to say, what was the red flag? What was raised? Why did you feel so adamant that we didn't want to go that you didn't want to go that route?
Time, Mr. Chairman.
So it may protect us, but I think it would be good to just go ahead and check and see why those 2. I mean, if they opted out, what should we be afraid of? And so we do want to do our homework on this end so that our children and our grandchildren can enjoy the same freedoms and with our land, with their land. Well, it'll be their land, but it was mine first.
All right, thank you, Mr. Norrell.
All right, thank you very much.
Mr. Rohr, if I may, Ms. Norrell, I've already contacted both. I have good friends on both boards, and I'll be seeing them in Raleigh Wednesday.
All right.
Thank you.
That answers my concern very
Okay.
good.
Now, that's all the people I had signed up. If there's anybody else that would like to address the Board of Commissioners, I'll give you 3 minutes.
Can I ask one question, Mr. Chairman?
Certainly.
Can before we're going to be meeting with the planning board before our next meeting. If you've got specific things that you see in this UDO, you need to point them out. You need to send them to Mr. Woody, to the planning board members, and get them to us that we can see them. Specifics. And if there's something that needs to be addressed, I think we've demonstrated tonight we're not in a hurry to pass the UDO. That we'll take the time. But I've got to know specifically what it is you're seeing that's causing you concern. From my seat here, all we've done is streamline the process.
That's the fact. I think we've gotten government out of the way. That's what we're always talking about.
Yeah, so if there's other things that you see, I need to see them. So I think that's fair for y'all to bring them forward.
Mr. Chairman.
I concur with Mr. O'Neill's comments. Point out what you don't like.
Mr. Evans, you have a further comment?
I'm reading a book right now called Being George Washington, and I want to read something I wrote down today that Thomas Jefferson said about George.
Not that whole sheet, is it?
No.
Okay, all right.
I can make it the whole sheet.
No.
No, Thomas Jefferson said George Washington's greatest feature and strongest feature was his character. Of his character was his prudence, never acting until every circumstance, every consideration was maturely weighed. And there's some more to the quote. But that's what I think this board's intention is, that we look at this thing completely from one end to the other and make a mature decision based on what's best for not Raleigh or Washington or the UN in New York, but what's right for Currituck County.
And I agree. And I think really the point is that we're not easily startled. Most of us have a few miles on us. If we see something that does cause us concern, we certainly will act on it. But frankly, just because you have a concern doesn't necessarily mean I would have the same concern because of different frame of reference. But I always welcome you to come speak your concerns for that. Young lady, did you want to come speak?
Yeah,
I'll get you next, camera.
Great, thank you. Thank you guys for your time. My name is Jill Rolfus. I live at 129 Deer Run. Now, I did just finish reading the whole thing last week. I just finished it before the Tuesday meeting. We have a farm. We have a couple businesses that we run. Plus, we have everyday living going on, so I have not had a chance. I do plan to put everything into an email. There are more concerns that I have. I have a partial list of concerns that I would prefer to email, because I do have some other people looking into this to help me out, because I'm no expert by any means, and there are people that are more qualified than I am. One of the things that I wanted to mention, you brought up Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson is one of my favorite people in history, and there's actually a little link in my life to Thomas Jefferson. I grew up in Lynchburg, Virginia.
I did too.
Did you? And my parents my grandparents had a dairy farm, and you know how farming works. If you don't have another profession, you kind of go in the red. The name of the farm was In the Red. And one of the farmhands that worked on the dairy farm did a part of the Thomas Jefferson DNA project. And as you may or may not know, Poplar Forest is within minutes of Bedford County and Lynchburg. And it said that on Federal Street in Lynchburg, Thomas Jefferson had a place where he lived with his one of his ladies. And so this farmhand was a part of the DNA project, and come to find out, he is a descendant of Thomas Jefferson. But one of the things that Thomas Jefferson was really big on was, after they got under the rule of the British, was that we needed less government, and that, you know, the way that government should be is that us people have sovereignty over things and over all these rules and everything. And then I guess when I was a teenager, we had some friends from Germany come to Lynchburg through the Kiwanis Club. And I'll never forget Manfred Grishund. And he looked and he saw this sign and he goes, "I love America." Okay. Why do you love America, Manfred? "Because you don't have to ask the government to put up a sign." And we're like, I remember my mom going, "Wait a minute, we do." And, you know, to be perceived by a foreigner that we didn't have these rules made us start thinking maybe we have too many rules. And, you know, the reason why I really want to see us slow down is not just because the Agenda 21, but do we really have to have so many rules? I mean, we have chickens on our farm, and under the new UDO, we would have to have them fenced in all the time. Well, then we lose our opportunity to have free-range chickens, which is a big deal in the community, or in health-wise, because if you research it, free-range chickens actually have a lower cholesterol count. They're more healthy for you. In fact, my thing that I always tell my husband, I forget our eggs are bigger because our chickens have more freedom. So it's not just maybe the Agenda 21 stuff, to which I know that, and I really appreciate your diligence in looking into this and making sure that's not it. But for me, it's having more rules. And I would really like people to have the opportunity. You know, the best fun that we had was when our nephew, who was 1 at the time, came and stayed at our farm with us. And in the morning, he'd go out with us and we'd let the chickens out, and he'd just stand there in just the awe, you know, as they came by him. And those are things that are going to be lost with more rules. Anyway, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
You mentioned the Kiwanis. Did you ever go to their travel logs in Lynchburg?
Loved them. Yes.
Great. I was a treasurer of the program over there for that.
Oh, then you probably know my dad.
I may have this time.
Mr. Chairman.
We'll have to talk later.
And by the way, the reason we fence chickens is because if you don't, the foxes will run off with all of them.
But, you know, we go and we close our chicken coop every night.
Oh, okay.
So we don't have that problem.
Okay. There's a great book written by a fellow named Joel Saladin, owns a place up in the Shenandoah Valley called Polyface Farms. And he's got a really great study about how managing farms and doing exactly that. It's movable chicken coops. He just drags the thing down another 100 feet every day. And
yeah, the chicken tractors, I'm not so fond of them because there again, you're caging them in.
He's been very successful with it.
I know, and I've seen a lot of successful with the chicken tractors. I just like the idea of our chickens being free range and being in a county with so much water and everything, we have a lot of insects and bugs, and now we're not limiting what insects and bugs they can get. They can go and get whatever insects and bugs they would like.
That's your question.
The only thing I'd like to say is we're talking about rules. Rules protect two people. So you'd be surprised at the people that come to this board to get us to enforce the rules to protect them. So rules aren't necessarily a bad thing. We'll debate that later on, but rules are to protect people. That's why we have laws. So yeah, I know you can have too many, but I just wanted to make that point. We don't have time to debate it tonight. But
oh, I don't want to debate it. I agree. I mean, you know, as far as the end of my property, I would like to be able to have my chickens run.
no, I understand, but I'm just saying rules are a two-way street.
I understand.
You know, the problem is we keep electing lawyers to Congress. That's how we got the rules.
Amen to that. Amen.
Cameron, did you want to say something? Thank you, Ms. Roberts. No offense intended, Mr. McCray.
I'm Cameron Tabor. I live at 608 Tulls Creek Road, Moyotte. Thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Chairman. My biggest concern, and I've not read the entire thing, I've read very little of it, but from what I've seen, I've been to the Extension Center and saw it looks great. It looks great. Actually, it's probably, in a lot of instances, less government, if you will. Some of the streamlining in that is going to be good for us. But I think what we need to look out for, and Mr. O'Neill hit on it and may or may not have realized it tonight, some of the verbiage that's in there, why can't we be conservationists and not sustainable? Why can't we use those terms that we've used traditionally? I think that's a lot of the problem that at least I have with this. The verbiage can be misconstrued because it's their word, and they can make it say different things. We know what a conservative is, and we know what conservation is. So I think we need to use those terms and use the terms we've traditionally used and would save us. That way it's our UDO and not somebody else's. And I would like for you all to keep that in mind as this verbiage transpires. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tabor. Anybody else? Hearing no one else, then let's move on to the agenda. And the next order of business is a presentation by the YMCA, and I see Mr. Maddock and Mr. George here tonight. I'm sure you're going to enthrall us with wonderful stories of the local.
I've got good news for you.
Good.
Nothing but good news. No, Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners, Mr. Manager and staff, my name is Billy George, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer with the YMCA Southampton Roads. I've got Dean Maddox here with me tonight, whose hard work and dedication is a lot of the reason why we've had some of the success we've had here in Currituck County. I first want to start by thanking the manager and his staff. I've built buildings in a lot of communities all across Virginia and North Carolina. And I think the last time I was at this board was the time the board approved the project. And this has been an incredible experience for us. For the manager and his staff, Mr. Woody, county engineer, working with the recreation department, senior citizens, we have come together as a team and I think developed a project that everyone in Currituck County can be extraordinarily proud of. You know, at that meeting, WISE make a promise to the communities they serve, and that's to increase the number of healthy families and build a foundation of communities by nourishing the growth and development of every child and teen, making our community a more healthy place to live, and giving our friends and neighbors an opportunity to give back to the communities they love. I had the opportunity tonight driving down just to drive over and see a Y. There's nothing better than seeing a Y in a recreation center at 5:30, and it was packed, and that's a good thing. And you know, I know we say that we didn't build a parking lot big enough, and I would tell everybody a full parking lot is a good thing. It's a great thing. And as I walked through both facilities, you know, I saw the foundations of community being built. And I saw children's nourishment and growing. You know, the child watch was full. We had active older adults in a swimming pool sustaining their vitality of life. We had a fitness center. I was shocked at the number of middle schoolers and early teenagers working out on equipment with their parents. We've shown slides at our boarding meeting. I saw it tonight. Families walking together. And then over on the recreation side, I saw kids and I saw parents nurturing the growth of their children in a recreation center getting ready to play basketball. And just to remind you, there was this great organization back in the 1870s that invented the game, but I think it was called YMCA. But anyway, basketball to us, like everything we do, is nothing more than a tool. It's a tool that when a child learns new skills and accomplishes things, whether it's making a basket or learning how to swim, okay, they begin to believe in themselves. When they begin to believe in themselves, we unlock all the potential. So we were on time. We are on budget. Two nice words for not only commissioners, but managers and YMCA directors, by the way. I'm sorry, I'm too old. I can either see you, I can see my numbers. I can't see them both at the same time. But here's some good news. We are 1 unit away from 1,200 units. A unit in a YMCA is a family household. That's in addition to the 400 households we were serving in Currituck County before we opened. So that's almost 1,600 units, 4,000 citizens of the county are members of the YMCA. That is extremely, it's almost 50% more than what we had hoped to be at the end of January. So we're very happy YMCA directors too. 70% family, 30% individual. But here's another great number, 35%, 1 in 3 of the members of the Y are coming on some sort of financial assistance. Everyone's welcome at a YMCA. The YMCA is reaching all aspects of the community. When I was in that nice full parking lot, not too full, don't need to expand it, I saw minivans, I saw pickup trucks, I saw SUVs, I saw jacked up trucks, I saw Currituck County in one location. And that, for us, is the only way we define the success of the Y. Are we the melting pot for the community? $21,376 was the financial assistance awards in January, on track for $250,000 in fiscal 2012. But that's part of the mission, and I think that's the important part of the partnership. Almost 90% of the members are Currituck County residents, which I think is exceptional. Participation from Moyock doubled. Participation from Grandy doubled. So all aspects of the county are coming to this facility. 17,633 visits in the month of January. You're on track for 200,000 visits. That's just the Y. The rec center and senior center would be in addition to that. And the most staggering statistic I've never seen before in my profession, and that is 87% of the members of the Currituck Family Y actually used it. Our association average would be in a 25 to 30.
I promise I'm coming. I will get out there.
And bless you.
The numbers up.
Bring the numbers up. Yeah.
Bless you.
Add another 220 pounds to the.
So, you know, Councilman Etheridge, I have to agree. This board was, I think, very visionary when it took that leap of faith some 15, 16 months ago, decided to go together on this project. It is working. I promise you that our organization will work tirelessly to make sure that it continues to work. Even the better news is our YMCAs are bigger in June and July than they are in January. So this just isn't the New Year's resolution fad coming. We have a spectacular outdoor swimming pool, which you will see thousands of kids and families coming together this summer. Again, we want to thank this board for its investment and trust in the YMCA. This is something that we plan to do regularly, is come back annually and report to this board how the YMCA is doing. We want to be effective in every community that we serve. We plan to be impactful, and we plan to do a job that you're very proud of. We're grateful for your trust in us, and we look forward to a successful year. I've got Dean with me tonight. If you have any specific questions or follow-up questions about the Y, we'd certainly be more than happy to answer them.
I'm looking for a cure for gravity. You could find one, I really would appreciate it.
It's horizontal. You don't want it.
Let me say this. I
right,
saw Commissioner
walk,
O'Neill
right.
today in a pair of shorts, and I walked up behind him and said, "Are they your legs? Or you riding a chicken?" So it's really neat to see everybody in the community there. So.
I need a piece of equipment that makes me taller.
If we had that, I would be taller.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. George, I can't speak for the board. I can only speak for myself, but I think it's their sentiments also that we appreciate the leap of faith the Southampton Roads Y took with us, because this was the first time you ever tried something like this.
Right.
And we certainly appreciate everything that you've done, and Dean and the rest of your staff, to make this a reality. And I'm like you. I think it's only going to get better.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make one comment, too. I was out there the other day. I'm sure most of you have already toured the senior center, but Diane took me around. She went, boy, that is a beautiful place. What a nice cafeteria dining.
Pool table.
Yeah, the pool table. I mean, the resources available for the seniors out there, and I qualify. I can go. And Butch really qualifies.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask a question of Dean. Could you, I've had some questions about what kind of summer programs the Y is going to be running. Could you go through some of those summer programs so that folks at home can just briefly let them know that there's something going on every day at the Y during the summer?
Right, yeah, we're really excited about the summer. We've got some great things planned, and I'll start with the outdoor pool. We're going to be having events about every other week out there, just family events, themed parties, a Disney event, just making it exciting and engaging, just drawing families in. We will continue our Parents' Night Out program where you have, I think it's the third Friday of every month, you drop your children off if you're a Y member, and we watch them for 3-4 hours so you can go out and have dinner. As well. It's all part of the membership, all included. And of course, we'll be doing swim lessons at the outdoor pool. We've got some great themed summer camps, including some middle school and counselor and training camps as well. All sorts of crazy activities, usually involves whipped cream, Jell-O, and all sorts of stuff. But just a whole slew of activities that we're excited. And I just want to say, too, it has been a pleasure working with Diane and Jason. Just a great partnership. One of my favorite things to do is to walk over to the seniors when they're having lunch and just listen to them tell me everything that's going on and just give them a hard time, say they want to touch my curly hair, whatever they want to do, and then go into at night to the basketball games and sit there with Cameron and her family and Eric and watch their kids play basketball, see the whole community. It is like Wednesday night supper every night at the YMCA. That's when the magic happens. So it's just a phenomenal partnership. You guys really thought ahead and just created just a beautiful thing. So.
Mr. Chairman.
And I think you lead the country in Zumba classes, too.
Yeah.
I think Mr. George alluded to 18 months. I think if we all think back, this conversation come about over 3 years ago. And the vision that was shown at that time has got us to where we're at today. A lot of hard work by a lot of folks, this board included, previous board, as well as you and your folks. And I just want to, as Mr. Etheridge said, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for bringing something like that to Currituck. I think it's going to be a jewel in the future. It is today, and I think it will continue to be as we move forward. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add one more thing. I was at a Board of Commissioners training in Chapel Hill last month, and that was one of the conversations that came up was the YMCA and the partnership that we had formed. And across the state, the Board of Commissioners in different counties are envious of what we've done. So the talk is across the state. So thank you again for that partnership.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
All right.
One last thing I'd like to say, gentlemen, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, moving on to new business. Recommendation of award for the finished water storage tank Southern Outer Banks water system. That sounds like Mr. Scanlon's.
That is me. Before I start, before we do the last item, would make it aware March 8th we're having the dedication of the community center.
That's my commissioner's report, and you're
okay.
stealing my thunder. But
okay, then I'll let you do that. The date and time, but I think those invitations were released today.
They were.
Yeah. Board, we have as we acquired the water systems on the Outer Banks, it has caused us to have to go through an expansion of the SOB water system. We're bringing tonight one portion of that expansion. That is the construction of a 1.5 million gallon finished water tank We had to bid that actually out twice. The first time we did not have enough bidders. The staff is making a recommendation along with the engineer on the project that we award the project to the low bidder, who is Crom Corporation, and the amount of the bid is $784,972. We've had experience with Crom. I think they've built the other tanks that we have out there, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
What's the location of the water tank?
It is going to be just north of the existing tank on the site of the water treatment plant. And it's slightly larger, so it'd be about the same scale of what we have there, but just to the north of it.
Any other questions?
I'll move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
To be paid for out of the Southern Outer Banks Water System.
Yes, sir.
Operators Fund.
Yes, sir.
Okay, motion second. All in favor?
And that.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Board appointments.
I don't think I have any tonight.
We'll just go down the list quickly, I guess. Planning Board's first one, and I think Mr. Etheridge is up for that.
Yes, sir. This has been one of the toughest appointments I've been able to find. I've probably talked to 50, 60 people, and I only had one person, and that individual came to me, and that's Daniel Cartwright, so I'd like to submit his name.
Any questions or comments? Motion?
Move for approval.
Second?
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. Mr. Cartwright. East Albemarle Library Board appointment.
Who's that?
Explain that to us, Gwen. Okay. I know we went through the emails with it. I know it's one appointment and going on Earl. You know,
Whose is it?
It's not whose, is it?
It's a recommendation.
it's just a recommendation which came from Ms. Hagermeister.
Are there 7 people on the board?
And one of them has to go on the Earl board. As I
One of
understand.
these goes on the big board, is what you're asking for,
We
correct?
have a list of the people that.
Okay,
can
yeah,
go on.
I read that.
Okay.
Well, you currently have a library, the Currituck County Library Board, that actually has 8 members. One of those members' term comes up this June. Because it's the 8th appointment, it's not associated with a particular commissioner. So you have the option to either let that position lapse and the board become a 7-member board, or you can reappoint that position. So you do have a person that is currently serving whose term is coming up.
Who is that?
That's Ms. Hyder. In addition, the Regional Library Board, the East Albemarle Regional Library, has members, and their members are made up from members of each county's library board. So the Board of Commissioners can make a recommendation from the slate of members of the 7 or 8 that we have, picking one of those and submitting that name into nomination or consideration by the Earl Board to be our representative. So you actually have 2 decisions in front of you, possibly 3, depending on one being, do you want to have an 8-member board member or a 7-member board? And if you want to go with 8, then you've got a reappointment, and then certainly then want a recommendation to serve on the Earl Board.
Is that 8th member eligible for reappointment?
Yes.
Oh,
I would propose Dr. Norm Dahm.
second.
For the Earl board?
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you talked to him? Do you?
No, I haven't.
Okay, because I was wondering if he really wants to do any traveling and all involved with it. I know he's a good guy, works hard at it. But
Haven't talked to him, but since his name was possibly put
Figured
forward.
since his name was on the
He was
letter,
there.
that
okay,
meant he would.
I'm good with that if the board is good with that. Yeah. Got a motion and a second for Norm Dahm for the Earl board.
What are we going to do with the 8-member versus 7-member?
That needs to be a motion as well. You want to leave it 8 or?
Well, it doesn't have to be done till June.
Correct.
All of our boards are 7 members. I don't know why we have one that's 8. But that's,
I would recommend that we go and be consistent with it and bring it to a 7-member board.
Me too.
Is that a motion?
I'll make that as a motion.
In a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of appointing Dr. Dahm and letting the patrician take this board to 7? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Senior Citizen Advisory Board.
That's my appointment. Mrs. Heidi Maltabon. from Knights Island. I'll make that as a motion.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Heidi Montalban. Farmland Preservation Agricultural Advisory Board. And, yeah, I did some input for that, as I said, and I discussed with the board members, and Charlie Dozier was one that was suggested, and I think everybody consented with that. So I'll move that Charlie Dozier be appointed to the Agricultural Board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Consent agenda.
Move for approval.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda carries. Commissioners report. Let's start with Mr. Idlet today. You can talk about the COA and community center if you want to. I didn't want to steal everybody's.
What?
I just had the COA groundbreaking in the community center
I'll let you
dedication
take care of
coming.
that. I don't have anything this evening.
Butch?
I've got a couple of things. I'd like to recognize Currituck High School cheerleading squad. I think they just won a regional contest, regional tournament. I think they're going to advance to the state. So I think that's really neat that that it seems like every time I turn around, Currituck High School is winning this award or this title or whatever. So I think it's great, and I think that shows a lot for their coaches and the people and the time that's spent, teaching our kids competition. Also would like to make everybody aware on March 17th, it will be the third annual Corolla Wild Horse Fund fundraiser. The tickets are $35 and includes food. I think Mr. Etheridge last year won the best hat for men.
I have a picture of that if anybody'd like to see it.
I'm not going to make any comment.
Have a hat on?
No, he had on a hat. It was nothing else.
Yeah, it was a statement.
Okay. But you can contact the CorollaWildHorses.org for tickets. It's on March 17th, which is St. Patrick's Day weekend. Or you can call 252-453-8002 for tickets. And all the money goes to help support our Wild Horse Fund, which is our North Carolina state horse.
Ms. Gilbert?
Couple things. First of all, I want to again make an apology to the Boy Scouts. I had a death in my family last Thursday and was unable to attend their honor program, but I want to recognize them, and I have invited them to come to the Board of Commissioners meeting to be recognized here. Second item is on March 2nd, the Moyock United Methodist Church is having a ribbon cutting, and Pastor Bill has invited folks to attend that. So if you would like to, at 12 o'clock on March 2nd.
Good. Mr. Martin?
Yes, I'd just like to remind everybody about the Business Expo this weekend at the high school.
It's very good because the Rotary Clubs are going to be selling hot dogs and other barbecue and popcorn.
Popcorn. Absolutely.
Good time will be had by all. Currituck kids will be there. April Bennett will be cheering everybody on. Mr. Etheridge.
Yes, sir. This past Saturday at the Northeast District 4-H Horse Bowl competition in Rocky Mount, we had a combined effort from two different 4-H groups, the Seeking Success 4-H Club and the Sandspurs 4-H Club. Our junior team placed third out of all those in competition. The mixed team, which is juniors and seniors, placed second in the district and qualified for the state competition to be held in Greensboro on March the 3rd. Another example, like Mr. Petrie said, with the cheerleaders of Currituck youth doing well. So our hats off to them for their hard work and success.
Mr. O'Neill.
I just want to say one other thing about the YMCA. Mr. Petrie and I had opportunity to go to their annual dinner. I guess it's been, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And they recognized different things going on in the YMCA, but they had some young teenagers, a young lady and a young man, come up and speak about some of these. Mr. Maddox didn't really go into some of the things that they have going on there. But they have leadership classes that some of these young people have attended, and just to hear those young people talking about the difference that having a Y, and of course the building is not the thing, it's the programs, and having a place to go where they can develop the skills to be leaders and different things that they have. It was really nice. That organization is well respected in Southampton roads and certainly here in northeastern North Carolina. And I certainly would recommend to any parents, if you have children that you need to get in some of these programs, it helps develop character, and it's just hard to find things for children that are good, sound-based programs, and they do a really great job. That's all.
Thank you. And the one thing I was going to mention, and I should let Mr. Scanlon go ahead with that because he really is sort of the officiator of these types of things for us. But Mr. Edwards, who's in the audience back there, sent out an invitation today about March the 8th. There's 2 events going on over at the community center area. The dedication of the community center building. Randall said it starts at 9. Peterson went out and says 8:30. Maybe he just wants to get us there on time. I'm not sure, but I assume 9 o'clock is the official time.
9 o'clock.
Okay, we'll be dedicating that building, be in the YMCA lobby. So if you can attend, please do so.
Cooking breakfast at 8:30.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Yeah. Well, they got coffee. If we had donuts, that would. Oh, that's the Y though. We can't. And then that's going to be followed at 10:30. There's going to be a ceremony and groundbreaking for the Aviation and Technical Training Center, which is a COA partnership. And that's going to be over in the auditorium of the Extension Center. So there's going to be 2 great events. They're milestones for Currituck County. So everybody please come if they can. Mr. Scanlon, did you? I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one thing.
All right.
Just come to me. Dan, I know we have met and talked with DOT on numerous occasions about the Marsh Road Causeway. I was noticing this afternoon coming off, it's still eroding away. The water's gotten behind the riprap, and it's really looking bad and dangerous. There's some places where along the sides of the roads there's holes that are starting to form. Can we get this elevated to another level?
We'll follow up with that, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Scanlon?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Nothing tonight. Okay, well, the business being dispensed with, we have a closed session we planned. We need a motion to go into closed session according to GS 143-318.11, parentheses 3, to preserve the attorney-client privilege, and also pursuant to GS 143-318.11A5 to give instruction to county staff regarding acquisition of real property owned by Diane Owens, 144 Gabbard Lane, Spot, North Carolina, to be used for any public purpose. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment, please? I know
Any objections? Ms. Etheridge? Ms. Etheridge, go.
My name is Mary Etheridge, and I live at 846 Shawbar Road. And I'd like to express my concerns tonight about Mr. Etheridge's appointment of Daniel Cartwright to the Planning Board. I assume this is the same Daniel Cartwright who is in litigation with our family over a conditional rezoning that Mr. Etheridge has been involved in. And if it's the same Mr. Cartwright, I have strong objections to him appointing him to the Planning Board tonight.
All right, thank you, Ms. Etheridge. Okay, I had a motion. We had business to attend to. Let me get that out of the way, and then if you have comment, we'll...
Call to question.
Okay, all right. Had a motion. A second?
Second.
You did? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, let's enter closed session and discuss that.